Joe Bustillos. Welcome to this edition of the Lumbering Through Life video podcast. I just got back from spending a few days with the folks. I don't know if it's the 4 days with the folks or the 8-hour drive there and 8 hours back that puts me in a thoughtful mood. The folks are getting on in years. This year, Dad will turn 79. Add to that, this visit had a higher than usual sense of importance because, like some old rock band on their final tour, this was going to be my last visit with the folks before I moved to Florida in June. It definitely added some energy to the air. On the surface, I was there to do some work on Mom's Mac Mini. I'd made a few mistakes when I installed it over a year ago. The biggest mistake being tucking the cute little box in an under-desk storage area, forgetting that even Macs need to be powered down occasionally. And neither Mom or Dad were able to find the tiny recessed power button in the back of the thing, especially because there was no way for them to see the damn thing being tucked under the desk unit. Unfortunately, the only people who could help Mom had no experience with Macs. Then, when my sister, who was quite good with her PC setup at home, came by, she pretty much just confused Mom. I knew that I needed to do something so that when Mom ran into problems, I could be of some assistance. And the problem had been bad enough when I was 8 hours away in California. I felt all the more pressure to find some solution before moving to the opposite end of the country. So that was the cover story. But for me, it was just good to be away with the folks, moving through the days at their pace. One thing that had changed was that my dad had always been an early riser, getting up before the crack of dawn, and then pass out in front of the TV at 9 o'clock. Mom had always got up with Dad, so I thought that she was also an early riser. But then several years ago, I discovered that she was more of a night person when I was staying with them, and she walked into the kitchen when I was in the middle of a typical 1 a.m. writing session. Now, since relocating to Arizona, it seems that Mom has won out, and now that they have a habit of staying up past midnight and not getting up until 10 a.m. That suited me just fine, even though I naturally wake up at 6 o'clock every day. The other interesting thing that I found was how much time they spend watching and falling asleep in front of the TV. It wasn't so much just the TV watching as much as Dad continually surfing. With dozens of channels to choose from, he'd spend the first 10 minutes solid of each hour or half hour flipping through the channels, spending no more than 30 seconds on each channel before flipping to the next one. Then even when he landed on a channel that we wanted to see, he flipped to see the next one and would go all the way through the dial to get back to it, rather than going back to the channel we wanted to see. Being the guest, I found this habit curious. Mom usually just read the paper or took the remote control away from him. So we got up late, talked a lot about the family over meals. In fact, there was this one morning I was really tempted to pull out my video camera because Dad was relating stories about his family that I'd never heard. I'm not sure why I didn't, except that if I had pulled out the camera over breakfast, they would have felt like they needed to be much more presentable, and that would have totally ruined the moment. Then I was also feeling a little guilty because several years ago, I interviewed Dad for over 40 minutes and never got around to editing those tapes. So I let the moment go. It was just nice enough to be there with them, talking about politics and the move and family. I'm a pretty open person, as is evident by my blog, but I really don't have that kind of blurted out kind of relationship with the folks. And I find it easier to listen more than talk, or to just ask questions to keep the conversation rolling. A few times my questions got them arguing, even though they both held on to the same point of view. So I tried to avoid doing that as much as possible. But the conversations were important, even if we really weren't saying anything. Just having the conversations, spending the time, was a good thing. As for my technology mission, I wanted to get iChat video working so there would be a possibility of keeping the conversation going. But I failed to get iChat video or the more important desktop share function to work when I tested it with my brother, who was online with me in California. When I tested it next using my MacBook instead of Mom's Mac Mini, it worked. So the leading theory was I was going to have to add more RAM to her computer. That would have to wait for another visit. I was able to get the Stickum video chat group thing going with my brother, myself, Mom and Dad, so the technology mission wasn't a complete failure. But then watching how they live their lives, mostly in the living room or in the kitchen, I knew that she was going to use the computer just enough to not really get the hang of it. I understand how intimidating the technology can be, and sitting with her for only a couple minutes to show her how to move pictures sent to her in her email to iPhoto, and then how to print them was quite a bit for one fast session. Now, Brother Matt gave them a 5-disc DVD CD changer during his last visit, and they were totally intimidated by the jumbo-sized remote. Given that all their music is already on her Mac Mini, and playing a DVD is simply a matter of slipping a disc in, it dawned on me that moving the Mac Mini to the living room and then attaching it to the TV with a Bluetooth keyboard or mouse would have been a neat solution, except for the fact that their standard definition 28-inch TV would have made reading or writing email totally impossible. When I shared my idea with Brother Matt, he thought I was completely crazy. But then he's never used Apple's easy-to-use front row application, and its one-button remote control is way easier and more intuitive than the 5-disc DVD changer remote that they're struggling with right now. And they would have access to all their music and all their pictures. And having a video chat session with me in Florida, Sister Joyce in Hawaii, Matt, Katz, and Michelle in California would really be a kick if they could do it from the comfort of their couch in their living room in all that full glory, big screen, HD. Anyway, I thought it was a neat solution, and if I could afford getting them an HD widescreen, that would be very cool. Very cool. They spend all their time in the living room anyway. Yeah, that's just like me to find a solution to something that they don't really feel is a problem. Typical.